Alright guys, I have already finished my front squats, and I finished my crazy box squats as well. I'm about to run into some chain suspended good mornings. And I had it in mind to do two different variations. And I also had it in mind that I've had several clients over the last several months that have had contests with partial deadlifts, anywhere from, there was one that was 10 inches, and I'm thinking, what's the point? You know, regular deadlift is, a 9-inch pull or so. What's the point of 10? But there's also been 13s, 12s, 14s, 16s, 17s, and 18s. And we've had to use multiple different ways to build the deadlift. And I like people to be able to build their lifts through frequency. And it's really difficult to deadlift on a very frequent rate. So one of the things that I like to do myself is for other people is to work on chain suspended good mornings. So there's a million different ways to do these. I commented on somebody's post the other day that you should try to do these with vertical shins. And then my buddy over at MST, and he really is a buddy of mine. I do like him a lot. Big respect. He made a video, and I just saw someone sent me the video clip and said, yeah, well, he said don't do it with vertical shins. And then I want to say that somebody else said it as well. Dr. Seth, my Dr. Seth, mentioned that you don't have to do chain suspended good mornings with vertical shins. You're absolutely right, you don't have to. But for the most part, I think we should strive to do that, but don't get caught up and so focused on it that you can't move some serious weight, because it has to transfer over to your deadlift. And if you're a strong man, it has to transfer over to your other lifts. So one of the things that I see that's a genuine question with people is how deep should it be? Because I will see people set it up just waist height and get totally underneath it, and usually and that's legit. That's fine. You can do that. You really can. But in general, if you want to make it build your deadlift, and I do want to say in general, this is just roughly. I know that if I'm deadlifting in here and I put the bar all the way down roughly on the ground, the bar, if I drop it, it will make contact with the metal pipe here. So I know that roughly on that bottom metal pipe here is where the deadlift start position is. So if I'm setting up on a deadlift right here, I want to get rough deadlift set up and think that I'm right here, and boom, if that's the point of impact that I'm at for the start of the deadlift, I want that bar to be like if it was on the top of my shoulders in maybe a low squat bar position right now, and if I was having to deadlift and stand it up from there. That's roughly where I have these chains set, or I think they are. That's where I've been using them for a while, so that's where I've got them set up, and that's where I'm working at today. So, I've got the SS yoke bar, which moves the bar up just a little bit because it has a pad. So what I'm looking at is something around this height right here. So if I was deadlifting, that's roughly maybe a little deeper. The point of impact on the deadlift. So that's where we're going to start with this one, and then we will move over into the 18-inch deadlift here in just a few minutes. Let's get started here. It's a whole lot of hams. Ooh, buddy. Ah! All right, guys, that was roughly a full deadlift that we just worked on. Now we're setting up for something similar to an 18-inch deadlift. I've measured, and roughly if the squat bar was on my back, roughly, then this bar would be right at nipple line or just a hair below with a very similar stance. That's not exactly where I want to take this with a front squat, but I mean, if I was setting up for an 18-inch deadlift, see, if a full deadlift, let's try this here. The full deadlift is here. I'm now, let's see, I'm now here. So I'm just below the knees. Kind of, I mean, if I had, you know, more vertical shins, but I'm just below the knees, right about in here. So I'm a little bit below where an 18-inch deadlift would be. Now you can continue using the SS yoke bar. You could hold the med ball, which makes it so much harder with the SS yoke bar. You can use a regular barbell here, deadlift stance, Atlas stone stance, super wide stance, and probably what you'll find is your super wide stance will build your conventional deadlift, and your conventional stance here will build your sumo deadlift. So you've got tons of variations. You can add bands, chains, all kinds of stuff. I think bands are a great option here, some kind of light bands. What I'm going to work on here, you can see where I'm standing, nipple line, it's right about here, so I'm a little bit below that. And I'm going to set up with my Viking squat, front squat harness, and I'm just going to work up a little bit here. I'm pretty taxed going in today. This is my 4th lower body exercise of the day, so we're just going to see where this leads us. Woo! Whoa! I lived! Alright guys, I lived through that. That's a very, very interesting lift, to say the least. It's important to look at, you know, this is a shorter range of motion by a few inches compared to what I did with the SS yoke bar and the med ball. But it completely loads the body totally different. SS yoke bar with the med ball is almost all butt and hamstrings. This is almost all mid back and a little bit of mid and lower quads. So it depends on where you need the work. The SS yoke bar, people, I want to say take advantage. They use it incorrectly by grabbing the handles, pulling the handles and slamming them down. And then they don't have their up, they slammed it down, which is rotating their shoulders forward, and they don't have their back tight at all. Really, you shouldn't be holding onto the handles at all, or if you are, it's just balancing. It's holding this way, not this way or this way. And you want your upper back and traps locked back just like you would on a regular squat. Completely contracted back. The issue is now we're starting bent over like this and we're grabbing a ball. So it puts you in a bad position and you can't find that position as you go up. So you're locked in holding that ball going in this position right here. So it's a lot of butt and hamstrings to lift it. With the front squat like I've got set up here, I think this is the lift where that harness really pays for itself. Because if you are locked in, I mean, if you can get locked in a proper front squat position, absolutely great. But at what point are you doing a proper front squat at the cost of having poor training sessions the rest of the week? Because of the stress you put on your hands, wrist, elbows, and shoulders. I mean, great, you can do that, but is your log press, Viking press, one-arm dumbbell press, axle clean and press, is your bench press, your incline, is all of that gonna pay the price for you just doing that? So what? Using a harness is not a real front squat. Fine, I accept that. This is not a real front squat either. And I'm not doing it to have a big front squat. I'm not doing it to even have a big one of these. I'm doing it because I want a bigger deadlift, bigger atlas stone, stronger pickup and movement on the yoke. So anyway, doing the front squat here, you can also do them, the JV squats. JV Aston was the first person I ever saw do these around the year 1999, but getting set up here, arms up front, elbows, and coming up out of that as well. Even more difficult than the harness. The harness is not easy, guys, I promise you that, because the bar is elevated a little more and it is out in front of you just a hair. It's not going to fall off. That's the big thing. But setting it up from here, it's absolutely great. So what height should you be training at? Well, if you're training to improve your full pull, it needs to be somewhere around that distance. I really, however your body is set up, I really would never have the bar at belly button position or lower. I think an inch to 2 inches above belly button position is going to be a solid point for pretty much anybody. There's going to come a point to where going extra deep on the good morning or whatever lift this is going to be more dangerous than it is beneficial. And I think if you are at that position, your body is not going to be in any type of position that's going to carry over to a deadlift position. You're going to be so limited by the amount of weight that you can use, the weight versus risk ratio, that you're not going to get adequate amount of benefit compared to if you raised it up to a couple inches above belly button, a spot where you can get an arch at the start. Don't get down here. Because what I tell everybody all the time with their deadlift, I don't really care if you have a rounded back or a super arched back, but finish the same way that you start. Finish the same way that you start. That's one of the keys to having spinal health on the deadlift. Don't start rounded and then finish arched. Don't start flat and then finish arched. Don't start arched and then finish flat or rounded. Pick one and finish the same way. So go down to the point to where you are at least flat and can maintain it, if not arched. And if you are super deep, you cannot maintain flat or arched. I think that if you're trying to build your 18-inch deadlift, use different positions. Base it off of 14, 16, 19, maybe even 20. You know, have a rotation every week. If you're doing this exercise twice a week, one week would say, one day would say 55% plus 15% in bands for 5 to 7 sets of 2. A minute rest in between. Work on being explosive with one height, whatever height you like. The next time during the week, do something a little bit heavier. You know, you've got your rep range, you've got your training program that you know works for you. Dig in there. But don't stick with the exact same thing every single week, because we want to continue to build your overall strength. So a lot of this, when I'm programming for clients, we'll do 1 week. If we're trying to build the 18, we'll do 1 week off of 12, 1 week off of 15, 1 week off of 19. We almost never do exactly 18, even when we're pulling the 18-inch deadlift. I like to do somewhere around 14, 17, 19. And then maybe 3 weeks out, we'll do something, you know, hit openers from 18, and then show up to the contest and be strong. So anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you picked something important out of all of this, and I hope you can apply it to your training. Have a good one, guys. See you next time.